The next speaker we have is David Sturzenegger. He did his PhD in electrical engineering from ETH Zurich. From his time at the big data company Teralytics, he acquired several years' experience working with highly sensitive data. There, he led teams of senior data scientists and software engineers. In his current role as head of products at Decentric, he leverages privacy-preserving technologies to help organizations work with sensitive data. David will be giving a talk on Confidential Insights, a platform for privacy-preserving data collaboration. Confidential Insights is the world's first platform for provable confidential surveys and peer group analysis. CI was built in order to make data collaboration easier and more secure. Data collaboration, that is multiple parties joining hands together to produce insights from combined data sets, provides great potential for extracting valuable information from data. However, when working on sensitive data sets, such as is the case in pharma and financial sector, confidentiality concerns offer stifle collaboration. CI presents a solution to this problem. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Nitin. And yeah, hello everybody, great to be here. It's fantastic to be speaking at an in-person conference again. So also thanks a lot for your attendance. As Nitin said, I want to speak about a platform for privacy-preserving data collaboration. I want to first start saying that this submission we made together with my colleague Etienne Sardon, he can't be here today, so I'm giving the presentation myself. So what is data collaboration and why should you care about privacy? This is basically the first agenda point that I have today. So the case for privacy in data collaboration. I then want to speak about the underlying technology called confidential computing, which is something that came up in the last years and enables this privacy at the same level of utility of the data. And finally, after having kind of set the scene, I want to then speak about confidential insights, the main topic of the talk today, and that is joint work by Decentric, where I work, and Swisscom, where Etienne works. So these are the three things I'll talk about today. Good, so the case for privacy in data collaboration. I like to start with a very simple example. Assume there are three people. In Switzerland, this example works very well. Let's assume they want to calculate their average salary, but they don't want to disclose their salary, right? In Switzerland, you don't talk about your salary. What are your options, right? You don't really have good options traditionally. Traditional approaches require a trusted person, a trusted party. Either you ask a person, they collect the numbers, they compute the average, and they promise not to disclose it. Or you use a database, then you trust the admin of the database. But there is no way of calculating this average without trusting somebody. Now, what is confidential computing and what does it bring? Confidential computing is a technology that removes the need for a trusted party. So you can build platforms, and that's what I'm going to present today, where the input data stays provably confidential from users, platform operators, and infrastructure providers. So this is something that has not been possible before and is now possible thanks to confidential computing, and it allows new ways of using data while keeping the same privacy as before. So this is a very simple example. There are more complex examples. This generalizes to much more interesting things, also from a business perspective. These are cases where we actively work on. So there is a case where it's much more interesting to look at an entire patient's journey across multiple healthcare providers. But of course, it is highly sensitive data, right? And these data sets will never be joined with traditional methods. We're actually right now going through a data protection authority review to enable such analysis for aggregated anonymous insights. So it's not possible to go back to individual level data. Still, you can do much better studies, real world evidence studies as they're called, thanks to these guarantees. Another case we're actively working on is the following. Banks have to send a lot of letters to their customers, right? But people move, letters get returned, and that results in a huge cost because the addresses are not up to date anymore. Now, Post has usually a very up-to-date address data set. However, and they even offer APIs to correct for these addresses, but banks, of course, cannot use these APIs because of banking secrecy. They cannot tell the Post, hey, please check the addresses of these 5,000 people who are my customers. They're not allowed to share this information. So we, again, put confidential computing in the middle to enable this in a privacy-preserving way. Nobody can see banking customer names. Nobody can see the Post data set. So with this as a motivation, I hope I could tell you a bit about what is a data collaboration, so multiple parties working together on data, and why you should care about privacy. And now I will tell you how this is enabled by confidential computing and by confidential insights. So confidential computing technology. What is confidential computing? It's basically, in one word, computing on unseen data. So there are confidentiality guarantees that I mentioned already a couple of times, and they can be proved. Users cannot see the input data. Platform provider cannot see the input data. Cloud provider cannot see the input data. What is the underlying thing that enables this? It is based on what's called a trusted execution environment. And that is a security feature of Intel CPUs. There are other hardware manufacturers who also support this concept. We're using Intel technologies called Intel SGX. And basically, if you program software in a way that it leverages these features, you can get the guarantees that I mentioned. So a bit more detail. What it enables is actually securing data in all possible states. So data can be at rest when it's on a hard disk. It can be in transit when you send it over a network. And it can be in use when you use it for computation. Traditionally, it's been standard for decades to encrypt data at rest, to encrypt data in transit. But what hasn't been possible is to encrypt data while you compute over it. And that is one of the features that confidential computing enables, so-called encryption in use. And this hasn't been possible before the advent of confidential computing. The second thing that confidential computing enables is actually proving what code operates on your data through a process called remote attestation. And these two things together, when it's in use, it's always encrypted. Nobody can access it, also not an admin of the machine. And as a user, you can be sure what code's operating on a remote machine, on a server. These two things together give the guarantees that I just mentioned before. So before speaking about confidential insights, I'd like to very quickly touch upon how we use confidential computing to enable these guarantees, to build a software platform that can be used by users and make this technology easily accessible. So at the Decentric platform is the basis for confidential insights. And what it enables is you to create a so-called data clean room. And what is a data clean room? It's basically a virtual contract of what data should go in and who is allowed to run which operations. This contract, this data clean room, gets defined. And once it's defined, it cannot be changed anymore. And because all of this runs in confidential computing, as a data owner, I can now be absolutely sure when I participate with a data clean room, I can be absolutely sure that my data can only be used for this very specific computation defined in the data clean room. So think about it. That's kind of conceptually a very new thing, right? Before, when you share your data, when I give you my data, and you may promise me to use it only in a certain way, but I don't have any guarantees that you actually do it like this, right? So now, thanks to this platform, thanks to this technology, it is possible to share and use data for a very specific reason I can share my health data for provably anonymous studies without running the risk of an misuse, abuse of my data. So that's the underlying platform, and that's basically the software that we build in order to enable things like confidential insights, and I'll get to that in a second. Repeating, I hope you're starting to become bored by what I'm saying, because that's actually the key message I want to bring home. With confidential computing, no one can see your data. Data owners are in full control over their data, and this can be verified end-to-end. There is no need to trust anybody. So Decentric, Swisscom, confidential insights, all of this is, you don't need to trust that your data is handled in such a way. It's basically guaranteed by the technology, and you can prove it. And we actually proved this to several IT security departments in the past. Good, so that's been setting the scene. Now I'd like to speak about the main topic here, which is confidential insights. And as I mentioned before, that's a joint project together with Swisscom. You can check it out on confidentialinsights.com. It's a confidential survey platform. So think SurveyMonkey, think Google Forms, where you send out surveys, you ask people to respond to these surveys, you get aggregated results back. The difference here is nobody can look at the individual answers. You provably keep every answer confidential. Only aggregated results can be returned. And I'll speak about how this is implemented, what are cases that have been using confidential insights, etc. So let me reiterate the problem briefly. So would you feel comfortable answering the following in an employee survey? Rate your boss from 0 to 10. I actually recently, not this question, but also had to answer an employee survey, and I felt like, how honest should you be? And I tried to be as honest as I could, of course, but still I had this emotion in me that said, okay, well, maybe be a bit nicer than real, etc. So there is really a problem of answering surveys honestly, and that is a case for an employee survey, but there are also other use cases such as comparing sales KPIs where you want to kind of keep your KPI private, etc. So that's kind of the first version of the problem. And as I mentioned before, with conventional survey platforms, the platform operator learns all the inflowing data. So there is no way you can protect your answer from the platform operator. So you need to trust this operator, and in some cases that may be totally fine. However, in some other cases, that may be not so good. So as I said, the solution with confidential insights, the platform operator who runs confidential insights cannot ever see any of the answers. Users retain full control over their data. So how does this look like from an architecture perspective? As I mentioned before, we have the Decentric platform. On top of that, we have confidential insights, which is a front end that allows things to be easily configured for a survey, answers being given easily, and I'll show a demo in a second. So you have survey creators that are users of the platform. You have survey participants that are users of the platform. And these are the ones that interact with the platform to run surveys in a confidential way. So let me go back to the very initial question or simple problem that I had, computing the average salary without disclosing the individual numbers. So Alan, Bob, and Charlotte want to compute their average salary without disclosing the individual numbers. We originally planned a live demo with Etienne not being able to be here. I recorded the video. I'm a bit nervous to see whether we can start it, but let's try. Maybe in the techniques, could you start the video? Let's see. Let's wait a couple more seconds. Here we go, fantastic. So a bit of suspense. So here we have Charlotte. Charlotte is logging into Confidential Insights. Actually, you can do the same anytime. Creating a new survey, not much surprise here. Adding average salary, defining who is allowed to participate, Alan, Bob, Charlotte. The question, what's your average salary? And that's the survey to be answered. So once she now encrypts and publishes this survey, and she now answers it herself. So she enters 50,000 and submits this answer. We jump to Alan, everything a bit faster here. Alan now also opens the survey where he's been invited to, and we'll now also look at some details of the guarantees. You see here Intel SGX. It's published and protected by that. So some trust signaling. Now Alan gives his answer, encrypts and submits, and we'll do now the same for Bob in a second. So Bob logs in. Of course, all of them are on different machines. That's just a video on the same. So Bob also gives his answer, also looks at this trust signaling, also gives his answer, and then you'll see the results in a second. So of course, that's been a very simple survey, but there is much more you can do with the platform, and I'll give you one example that's been used. So final thing is, now that everybody has submitted their data, of course, you can look at the aggregated results. Again, no individual results are ever visible to anybody, also not Decentric, not Confidential Insights. Only this average is being returned. So that's how you can use Confidential Insights to solve these problems that I mentioned. So great that the video worked. I'm happy. I'll click to the next slide. One reference case that I'll like to quickly speak about is an online mortgage survey, so a survey about online mortgages. Swisscom's banking think tank, eForesight, used Confidential Insights for its annual online mortgage survey among 30 Swiss banks. Some banks said that thanks to the additional privacy guarantees that Confidential Insights provided, they were much better shape in answering this. And that's also what Sophie from eForesight said. So this is one case where you can use this not for an employee survey, but for aggregating some sales KPIs, some other KPIs in a confidential way. So who can use Confidential Insights? I touched upon this on a couple of times already. We saw a case for banks and financial institutions. Of course, corporates is also a point. Also in academia, there are surveys about sensitive data. So for all these verticals, this might make sense to be used. So, of course, try it yourself, confidentialinsights.com. All of what I showed you can do as of now. And yeah, let me come back and close with this question again. So rate your boss from 0 to 10. I hope I could show you how confidential computing and then Confidential Insights on top lets you give honest answers without worrying about the privacy of these answers, and how confidential computing opens completely new ways of using data while guaranteeing the privacy of this data. So with that, I close. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to take some questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, David, for such an amazing talk. Do we have any questions from the audience here? Would you like to come on this side, maybe, to the mic?
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Please say your name and yeah.
Anyways, so my name is Silvan. I was just wondering, maybe I missed it, but don't I still need to trust your front end that it encrypts the data you enter?
No, that's actually a very good question. So first of all, that is true to a certain extent, but I mean the front end is under your control, right? It executes in your browser. So theoretically, you can look at all the JavaScript that's being executed in the browser. By the way, I repeat the question if the mic didn't work. So the question was, don't I have to trust the front end to actually encrypt the data and send the data encrypted? So you're 100% right. So there are a couple of different options. Right now, we provide this in the browser. You can inspect if things are actually being done, how we promise. There is also ways of doing this with like things like a browser extension. So you have kind of one-time code that's that you can audit. And finally, generally for our platform, we also provide APIs, right? So basically, that's actually, I mean, front end for, let's say, more complex ways of working with data, it's usually not done through a UI. At some point, you want to automate. At some point, you want to have like a full automated pipeline. And there we use an API. And of course, an API you can always inspect once and then see it. But maybe one last addition to that, you know, you also trust somewhat your browser that, you know, it actually TLS encrypts your data, and you know, there is this. So it's this trust area is interesting. The big difference here is actually you can, you know, check every step if you wanted to.
Yeah, thanks.
Good question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions here? Can we get the mic working?
Yeah, thank you very much for your interesting talk. I was a little confused about one notion, like the consent management stuff. If I decide not to allow my bank to use some data for statistical purposes, for example, what are you going to do with that? Are you telling the customers, we respect that, so your data will not be processed by this technology, even if it's privacy? You know what I mean? Or
Absolutely.
will you tell me, you know what, yeah, you did not allow me to do that, but because you use this technology, we'll do it?
No, that's actually a very good question. So I think now the microphone worked, so I will not repeat. But basically, we just want to make the process more private, right? So, you know, in the end, it's up to the bank to decide, like, to say, okay, these are the people that said that I'm fine with this. So all we do is kind of, if the bank and if the people decide to do this, they can do it more securely now than they could before. So that's, in the end, you know, we are very much focusing on privacy, and you know, it's a topic that's very close to my heart. So we just want to make good things even more secure and not enable bad things. I hope this helps.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much for the question. I wish your platform existed during my master's program, because the students were so afraid to give reviews for the professors, you know, that even the nastiest of the professors got very good reviews. Thank you very much for creating it. And we have a small present for you from the Alliance.
Thank you very much. Fantastic.
All the very best with your future work, and I hope a lot of companies come on board to your platform.
Thanks a lot, Nitin. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks.